Good afternoon, folks. Hey, just a quick video where I'm going to address some of the key things that I saw in your rough drafts. And I wrote on everyone's rough draft, so let me address that first, okay? If you uploaded a Word document, what I do is I download it, and then I respond to it using track changes, and then I rename it and re-upload it into your Dropbox. The only way that you can get my feedback is if you go in and you download. Usually I just use your first name and RD, like for this example anyway, RD1. So you have to download it, open it, and you should see comments throughout. So marginal comments, track changes, some just different things throughout. And then at the end of everyone's essay, you'll see a paragraph or so where I give you some feedback. If you don't see that, you need to let me know because something might be blocking in terms of pop-ups and things like that. It could be the best essay in the whole entire world, and I will still leave you some comments. So if you get your paper back and you don't have any feedback, let me tell you, something's just not showing because it's there. Those of you that submitted PDFs, I am not able to write directly on a PDF, so if I download it, I can't write directly on it. So instead, what I've been doing is Brightspace updated their technology, their software this semester, and I'm able to write directly on the document that you upload. It's not quite the same as track changes. It's a little crude in spots, not crude in a vulgar way, but crude in like an archaic sort of way. But you'll also see some pen marks on there from computer pen marks, and then some things that look kind of like post-it notes. They're actually little text boxes, which if you click on them, if you see a little text box or post-it note type thing, speech bubble, click on it because then you'll see some feedback from me, and there's some more elaborate feedback. And then also at the end of the document, I've left you some feedback there. Okay, so in general terms, the essays were actually very good. You did a nice job of really getting in and evaluating what the writers had to say. I want to start with a few key points, and this may or may not apply to you, so you take what applies to you, leave the rest, okay? Titles. You need to have an original title for your essay, not analysis of Friedman's essay, blah, blah, blah. I want you to come up with something that captures what you're saying about which of the ever of the articles that you're looking at. So make sure that you do that. You do not need to underline or italicize your own title. It's original, so you don't need to do anything to it. Just center it directly beneath your heading and then dive into the essay. Which leads me to my next point, diving into the essay. I know I mentioned this before, and then it's also on some of the tips for the essay, but don't tell the reader what you're going to do. Don't tell me in this paper, I evaluated this essay, blah, blah, blah. The essay needs to be able to stand on its own. So you might want to begin by talking about the content of the article, the issue, the subject matter. Then it allows you to draw your reader in by giving them some time to think a little bit about Google or Facebook or Trump shoots, whatever, whatever the presidency or politics or whatever it is, you can use that as a segue into then the article. So if you begin by talking about, there's been a lot of contention over, over President Trump's commentary and blah, 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 whatever it is. And then you could move in, or maybe over the next election. And in this case, of course, it's talking about the midterm elections. And then you can move in and say, Thomas Friedman addresses this issue. And then you might want to talk about how either cleverly or crassly or abruptly or indirectly, whatever it is that you think about that article, in his recent article titled, and then you give the title of that article, which should go in quotation marks. And then you go on to evaluate what you see happening in that article. You have to keep in mind your job with this particular essay is to evaluate the rhetorical strategies, the construction, and the composition of this essay. So you're looking at it from a writer's point of view. What does he do? How does he do it? What's unique about these approaches? Where do you see him, and him could be any of the authors, creating support for the position that's presented in the article. What's unique about it? Warren's essay, for example, examines it through his point of view through a dialogue. How does that impact the reader? Why do you think he does that? What's the significance of using the evidence that he uses? So you're thinking about more than just what's there and looking at why it's there, and what the impact of what's there has on a reader. So those are the primary suggestions, I guess, that I have for the reader. I left you with a lot of questions, many of you anyway, only because I want you questioning, thinking your way through it. So why does the author do this? Why does he do that? What does he do? What's the impact of what he's done? You have to really allow yourself to dive into the text. That's the next piece. You want to move beyond general statements like, oh, he does a fabulous job, he's engaging. Well, why, how, in what place, in what ways? So use some specific examples of the text. If you think the diction is particularly poignant, then show me some examples of the words that he uses. Why are they so effective or impactful? And you have to move those into your text pretty smoothly. So think about that as you're revising your essays. The other piece that seemed to shine through on a number of essays was the transition from one idea to the next, the transitions, I should say. Okay, so how do you get from this idea to the next idea? You don't want to just drop things in there randomly. They're all connected in some way, but you have to remember the reader is not in your head. So you want to make sure that you smooth out your movement between those ideas by relating very directly the connection, the relationship from one idea to the next, and then from those ideas back to your overall purpose or position on the quality of the article itself. Save your opinion on the issue until the end of the essay, okay? And don't let your opinion on what the writer is saying blur your ability to effectively evaluate the way that it's being said. And I know that's really tricky, okay? So just as you don't want to see ridiculous bias in things, you don't want to reveal any ridiculous bias as you evaluate either. So be fair as you evaluate what he has done or she has done, and then how and why and for what audience. So think about these things as you work your way through your revisions. I will tell you this also, just kind of as a logistical piece. The groups that I created, or I let Brightspace create for me, I hand entered the groupings, but seems to be working for some, but not so much for others. Post your paper there, and I think it will put you automatically in the group because it should identify who you are, because you're already placed into certain groups. So your essays should appear there. If you're not able to see your group's essays, email me. I'll send them out to you, okay? I have access to them, and I'll just send you what I have so that you can give some feedback. You also have access to one another's email addresses on Brightspace. If you go to that communication tab and you go down to class list, you can just boom, 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 click on those boxes, and you could send things and communication that way as well. I do want to see the feedback that you're offering one another. It's so beneficial. I'm looking at a lot of essays, so I move through them rather, I don't know, I don't want to say quickly because I've been grading for hours and hours and hours just on your class, but I'm seeing a lot of them, and I look for certain things, and you will be able to find other things in one another's writing. And I think it's beneficial to do that as you work your way through one another's papers. So you have some different perspectives, and I think it's interesting to get all the feedback, and important to get all the feedback that you can. So again, if you don't see that, let me know. I'd like for you to have that posted up so that the writers can use it by tomorrow.